Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. You can bring up anything that you want here. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE, like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. And we've got the Discord on-air call-in line rooms for you over at discord.lrn.fm. So try those out, because you will sound almost like you're sitting here in the studio with us if you do that over at discord.lrn.fm. With you in that studio tonight, it's Ian.
It's Vincent.
And Chris.
Let me turn you up a little bit there, Chris. All right, so that should help. So, I know you guys want to ignore this this mass shooting, or at least Vincent, I think you said that. I don't remember.
Well, I mean, there's a difference between ignoring and just not talking about something.
Well, I mean,
especially, if it's saturation in the news for something that happened like an ocean away.
Sure, but it's a pretty major news story. Sometimes news is so big that, we're pretty good about ignoring the big headlines here on Free Talk Live. Let me just say that, because, normally the things that interest us aren't what make the big headlines. However, every now and then there's just something in the news that's just such a big story, it seems like it can't be ignored. And
what's the story? What's the headline?
Almost 50 people have been just slaughtered in New Zealand. 49 people are dead in a attack.
Is this the government that did this, or?
Well,
there's debate on that, but we can't mention it, otherwise we'll get kicked off of Twitter and every social media platform.
Wait, what? You can't. What? What's going to get us kicked off?
Well, if we speculate whether or not the government was a government was involved,
that they're kicking people off Twitter for that now.
Yeah, that's how.
What's the official story?
Well, I have honestly only know what I heard about during Call to Freedom. So
it seems like if it's not the government doing it, is this really news? If this is just another story about somebody
news.
Shooting up a school or
50 people
something.
being killed. That's pretty unprecedented. Maybe that doesn't mean anything to you. But
it doesn't seem of that much consequence.
Maybe you're just so callous.
Well, because people, hold on, people get killed. Like that amount of people get. I think there's somewhere there's a 9/11 every day in like the Middle East or something because of the bombings, or maybe not every day. Every month, like thousands of people are killed because of drone strikes and just the war in the Middle East. So this is why I'm and obviously any loss of life or any loss of innocent life, I think, is tragic. But I do think it's in some senses it's sick that like the news would pick and choose which deaths to advertise and make money off.
That's exactly why it's not news. It's because they're just picking a story that they know will get headlines when there's probably lots of other groups of people who have died, probably even in larger numbers on the same day, but they pick this one story because it's gonna,
I'm not going to say you're wrong, but I'd like you to go ahead and find me something from, some other headline elsewhere that is competitive with the body count in this particular story.
Yeah, but that's the problem. They're not reporting on it.
I see.
If they were reporting on it.
So wait,
Israel began bombing Gaza yesterday, yesterday evening, because like 2 rockets fired. I don't think there's any casualties from those rockets, allegedly from Hamas. And then that gives the Israelis a carte blanche to start terror bombing civilians.
Right, but we're not talking about governments attacking governments, unless of course you believe this was a government,
I'm not saying that at all. I was asking.
We're talking about individuals killing individuals in large numbers, and apparently in this case a group attack. Okay, so there's allegedly 4 people who've been arrested.
So it was organized.
Yes, and apparently it was based out of 4chan. That's the allegations.
Are you serious?
Yeah, apparently there's like a 70+ page manifesto.
Wow, I have it in front of me.
I don't know what percentage of
What's the manifesto?
Well, hold on. That's what's
now.
Even crazier is apparently a good portion of, maybe, I don't know what percentage of it, maybe all of it, was basically copy and paste from 4chan. Like memes.
Yeah.
Huh.
I have it in front of me. I haven't had.
You have the manifesto?
Yeah. I haven't had a chance to read it. We're trying to scrub it, right? So, the news media is fine plastering the guy's face all over, but they're like, oh, don't read what they have to say.
Oh, that's exactly what I want to know. Every time they leave that kind of detail out, it's like the first thing I want to know is why did the person do what they did, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you begin to solve a problem if you don't even know why people are doing the things that they're doing that you don't want them to do?
Right, and if all this person is doing is copying and pasting memes, then you really don't know anything.
It's like they have a Q&A Q&A. What's exactly like the basement tapes with Columbine. The sheriff's department or whoever's in charge of it destroyed all of them before anyone had a chance to see what the shooters had to say. And did that solve a problem of school shootings? No, absolutely not.
Definitely
so it's ridiculous. Not. It's just like an ostrich shoving our heads into the sand.
Let me give you some of the allegations here, because this is pretty much breaking news. I mean, it was earlier today, midday prayers in New Zealand when this happened. At least 49 people. This is according from the AP.
Was this at like a mosque or something?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
At least 49 people were shot to death at 2 mosques during midday prayers today. Most, if not all of them, gunned down by an immigrant-hating white supremacist who apparently used a helmet-mounted camera to broadcast live video of the slaughter on Facebook.
Oh, wow.
So is it sounding newsworthy to you now?
Yeah, it's certainly a more interesting story than I had initially anticipated.
Right.
It's just that we have so many people die every day. You think it's callous, but it's not callous. It's just it's more manipulative. Is kind of where I was going.
You're saying the news media is manipulative?
It's very manipulative.
I agree.
We feel like 50 people is a lot, and it is on an individual level, but in the scheme of
the largest and most deadly shooting in the history of this entire nation of New Zealand.
Wow, interesting.
So, I mean, this is a huge deal. One man was arrested and charged with murder. Brenton Harrison Tarrant appeared in court. Okay, now that's different than what I heard earlier. I heard there were 4 of them. Appeared in court Saturday morning, and because it's already Saturday morning there, and strict security was there, showed no emotion when the judge read him 1 murder charge. The judge said it was reasonable to assume that more charges would follow. 2 other armed suspects were taken into custody while police tried to determine what role, if any, they played in the cold-blooded attack that stunned New Zealand, a country so peaceful that police officers rarely carry guns. It was by far the deadliest shooting in modern New Zealand history. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said, quote, "It is clear that this can now only be described as a terrorist attack." She pronounced it one of New Zealand's darker days. Tarrant, who police say carried out at least one of the shootings, posted a jumbled 74-page manifesto on social media in which he identified himself by name and said he was a 28-year-old Australian and white supremacist who was out to avenge attacks in Europe perpetrated by Muslims. I got news for you. If Muslims perpetrated attacks in Europe, you probably aren't going to find them in the mosques in New Zealand. Just saying. If you want to get revenge on somebody who has attacked you, and I don't recommend revenge, I think that it's just the cycle of violence, and that, somebody has to break the cycle of violence. Continuing it is just going to make the world poorer and, more violent.
Well, but that's exactly, and just from the manifesto, that's exactly what this person wanted. Like, I haven't had time to read all of it.
What do you mean? What he wanted?
Well, the goal was to, I can't quote anything, but from what I've heard, the person's goal was to further polarize people, right?
Yeah,
because
he wants more people to hate each other.
And, he wants to, it's called accelerationism. That's what they call it, where by making things worse, they achieve their goals or make things somehow better. So by, talking about it, by, calling for, more censorship or gun control or whatever, it's playing exactly into this person's hands, or at least what they wanted.
Yeah, but I mean, what did he really want? Did he want his own? I guess it's a kind of apparent what he wants based on just the description that he's a white supremacist. Presumably, he wants a society that he can live in where there's only white people. So,
well, we don't know exactly what he wants. There's a 74-page manifesto which may or may not have his actual opinions in it.
Oh yeah, because it's just from the first several pages, it says how he made his money by investing in BitConnect.
Oh wow.
Which isn't true, right? I mean, that's just
for a period of time, maybe if he got out before BitConnect went down the drain. But so that's my first thing. The first paragraph I see BitConnect. I'm like, all right, that's one meme there.
Yeah, and
how are they associating this with BitConnect?
It's just a meme. They were reading it during Call to Freedom, which is the afternoon drive show on LRN.FM. They were reading from some of this manifesto, and it was just apparently all memes. Now, I don't know all the memes, so I have no idea what's a meme and what's not. I might recognize some of them, but I imagine, Vincent, you're probably more in tune.
I recognize quite a few.
So there's more coming up here. If you want to share your thoughts on this, 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. It's Free Talk Live. It's Free Talk Live, and you can dial toll-free. Take control of the airwaves. Bring up whatever you want. Our number is 855-450-FREE, but the obvious story of the moment is this mass shooting that happened in New Zealand at a couple of different mosques, which, by the way, somebody did chase this person away at one point. There was, from what I understand, I'm not sure at which mosque it was, but somebody had a gun, like a legal gun carrier. Now, apparently there aren't too many of those in New Zealand, but somebody had a gun and managed to chase this person off. He didn't shoot him and kill him, but he did, abort, basically, one of these attacks early on. So proof that what we've said for so long, I mean, we've reported on countless shootings here in the United States over the years doing Free Talk Live, these various different school shootings, for instance. And, of course, they always take place in places where they're gun-free zones, where nobody, with the exception of maybe a school resource officer, maybe a cop who happens to be there, is armed, which essentially means that it's, like shooting fish in a barrel. Because, you've got a bunch of people who are unarmed and basically just waiting around to be victims of somebody who's willing to break the law, which most of these school shooters are. In this case, we're not talking about a school shooter. We're talking about somebody, maybe more than one person. There have been a few different arrests. One person has been charged so far in New Zealand with one murder, even though 49 people have been shot to death. So again, this is basically breaking news. It happened earlier today. It's Ian, Vincent, and Chris in the studio. You can reach us at 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. If you are an individual who rejects the initiation of force and agrees to abide by the ethics of the non-aggression principle, then you belong over at liberty.menu. You ought to put the things that you do, maybe the business that you run, maybe the digital content that you create, or the event that you coordinate. You can put it up there at liberty.menu. It's basically a liberty-oriented business directory, but it's got kind of a social media aspect to it. You can leave reviews and ratings of the different businesses there. So please drop into liberty.menu, and you can use code FTL to get a special Free Talk Live listener badge. That's liberty.menu. Vincent, you've got the 74-page long manifesto here, and it does appear that a chunk of it was written by him. I'm not sure, again, how much of it, because apparently there's a lot of memes.
Oh, yeah. I have two paragraphs here. I would, from so far, the most outlandish things written in here. I don't know if you want.
Please, feel free to share here.
All right, so I'll just read two of them here that I found so far.
And what page are you on? Just cite which.
On the PDF, page 17 out of 74. So verse 1. Is there a part?
This is in his Q&A? He's basically asking questions of himself.
Yeah, and so is there a particular person that radicalized you the most? And he replies, yes, the person that has influenced me above all was Candace Owens. Each time she spoke, I was stunned by her insights, and her own views helped push me further and further into the belief of violence over meekness.
Now, hold on.
Is this a politician?
Isn't Candace Owens the lady on Twitter who got banned because she took like some sort of leftist statement and then changed it to be? Am I right about this? Isn't she like a black Republican?
Yeah,
or something?
I'm unsure about that. But that's something that she would do, right? That's in her character to do.
I heard she got banned because she changed the wording of some hateful lefty post and turned it into kind of like a hateful righty post, and that got banned.
Probably she just replaced white people with any other group, and that got her banned. So Candace Owens, and earlier in the manifesto, the person, when he's talking about his political views, he talks about his disdain for conservatism, and he describes himself as an eco-fascist. Here, from what made a lot of people think this was just a troll, was how he says, Candace Owens influenced him, when obviously from all of this guy's views, Candace Owens, who's an African-American conservative, very milquetoast, associated with Turning Point.
She would certainly never advocate violence.
Absolutely.
Like
so this is just, in my opinion, an attempt to smear her, which is like, if you hate someone and you're going to do a very terrible thing, I mean, it makes sense to, blame it on them. So this is just because a person even said something about PewDiePie at one point.
This person?
Yeah, that's it. And then the second thing that came up here was the second question afterwards that was outlined. It says, were you taught violence and extremism by video games, music, literature, or cinema? And the person replies, yes, Spyro the Dragon 3 taught me ethno-nationalism. Fortnite trained me to be a killer and to floss on the corpses of my enemies.
Wow.
No, and then follows it by no. So
people are going to take this seriously. Like, they don't realize that he's being sarcastic.
Well, he did say no right after that, I guess.
Yeah.
But...
So, I mean, for some, sarcasm is almost impossible to decipher through text,
Well,
right?
It's hard.
That's exactly what I mean. Like, somebody's out there is going to take it seriously.
Yeah. And so that's just an excerpt from this stuff. And Fortnite, of course, is a hugely popular video game. I mean, lots of people, I'm sure, have heard of it. Whether they played it or not is another question. And so you're right. I think there's a legitimate concern that some of the anti-video game violence people are going to point to that.
Oh, yeah,
and
for sure.
They're going to say, see, we told you. Here's a mass shooter who's citing Fortnite.
And Spyro the Dragon turning people into racists.
Yeah. So if you want to join us here, 855-450 free. Again, they've had a couple of, well, what they say, 2 armed suspects were taken into custody. This is the AP report saying one man was charged with murder so far. And the man's name is Brenton Harrison Tarrant, who police say carried out at least one of the shootings. He was allegedly the one who posted this 74-page manifesto on social media. And
oh, that's right. These people are still alive.
Yeah, that's an unusual aspect of this. Because, well, that's probably because it took place in New Zealand and the police there aren't as, like, gung-ho as the cops in the United States.
Yeah, but these guys had guns, and often the shooters will kill themselves.
That's true.
But
often
in the manifesto, he explicitly says he wants to be taken alive so he could continue spreading his message.
That is interesting.
That is unusual. Australian white supremacist who was out to 28-year-old Australian white supremacist who was out to avenge attacks in Europe perpetrated by Muslims. The gunman also live streamed in graphic detail 17 minutes of his rampage at Al Noor Mosque, where, armed with at least 2 assault rifles and a shotgun, he sprayed worshippers with bullets over and over, killing at least 41 people. Several more people were killed in an attack on a second mosque in the city a short time later.
Wait, he left and they actually got to another mosque?
Apparently.
Well,
wow.
And the assault rifle, the gun part, for me, that's what makes it somewhat suspect for me, right? You know, New Zealand and Australia have some of the strongest
Very
gun
restrictive.
control. And, you know, we're island nations, too, so it's not easy to smuggle things in. So, like, how...
Yeah, but what stops you from making one?
Well, I don't think you can't make. I mean,
you could with a ghost gunner.
Well, I guess it hasn't said if it was.
I mean,
this
is the problem. You're not going to be able to keep this kind of stuff out from the people who want to get it, who
That's
are willing
right.
to break the law. I mean, we know these laws don't work. To actually stop the people who are looking to do harm from getting these types of weapons.
Well, but if he made
we know it, but do the other people out there?
And
know
if he
it?
3D printed the receiver, I'm sure he would have. Like it said, he was shot dozens and dozens of times. I'm sure it would have melted by the time.
Well, no.
Okay,
you're thinking of 3D printing. So the ghost gunner is like basically
a milling
system.
It's not the same.
It's a professional.
Okay.
Like,
well, I mean, I doubt an Australian could have gotten their hands on one, but we'll see.
I suspect they would prohibit the ghost gunner from coming in, but who knows? Maybe they don't.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways to get these kinds of things, even where it's outlawed. So I don't know.
We got more on the way. If you want to share your thoughts here, and if we can, pull more out of this ridiculous manifesto, we could do that too. If you want to jump in, though, the toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. And, of course, you can bring up anything you want. You don't have to talk about this psycho down in Australia. And was it more than one person who was involved? And what is 4chan's role in all this? It's Free Talk Live.
Bitcoin.com is delighted to announce their latest partnership with the gift card specialists at eGifter. With many of the world's leading brands on their roster, it is now easier than ever to get the gift cards of your favorite brands with Bitcoin Cash. To get started, just follow these simple steps. Visit giftcards.bitcoin.com, pick the gift card you want, follow the instructions on your screen, and make your payment using your Bitcoin Cash wallet. Sit tight and your gift card will be delivered to you as soon as it's ready. That's giftcards.bitcoin.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You dial toll-free, bring up whatever you want here. Our number is 855-450-FREE. 49 people allegedly killed at a couple of different mosques in New Zealand earlier today. They have charged one person with murder and have taken into custody at least a couple of others. With you in the studio here tonight on Free Talk Live, it's Ian.
It's Vincent.
And Chris.
Now, of course, you can bring up anything that you want. We're doing our best to kind of parse through there's a lot of information, obviously. We've got a 74-page manifesto, which is, it does appear that he wrote this himself, but it's also peppered with basically memes. Text from memes, essentially.
Okay, so it's more than memes then.
Well, I wouldn't say, it's not like you said copy and pasted. I haven't seen any evidence of that. It's just like when he's writing the manifesto, he would refer to the memes.
Oh, really? Okay.
So it's like inside joke. It's one gigantic inside joke for Anons.
Which is crazy. I mean, to suggest that,
severely deranged. Yeah, absolutely. Like
that it's funny.
How elegant to moon
Now,
lunatic.
if you want to talk about somebody who's callous, I think it's probably fair to say that this man sounds like a callous person.
You have to be a callous person to take somebody's life like that, right? Like, that's sick.
I can't imagine.
You're a psychopath.
I don't know. I don't know if you have to be callous to take somebody's life, but certainly this sounds like it was.
How could you not be callous and murder and commit murder?
If you're defending yourself, or
right? We're not talking about self-defense here, right? In that case,
I wasn't suggesting,
Just to be clear, I wasn't suggesting that people who are acting in self-defense are callous. I meant you have to be callous. You have to be a psychopath to take somebody's life as an offensive measure. This person's going into a church, going into a mosque, and spraying bullets around and murdering people. I mean, that is a sick thing to do. Whether it's 49 people or one person, you got to be a psycho to do that. Something's wrong with you. And that's one of the reasons why these things are newsworthy, is because, they are still pretty rare. As often as they seem to happen in our kind of collective consciousness, it's still a rare lunatic.
I don't think this. I don't think this kind of thing happens that often, but I think there's a lot of people who get killed in various ways constantly on like a daily basis. If we take the world as,
Are we talking about people who get killed from accidentally falling off a cliff, or are we talking, in a car accident, or are we talking about murders?
Bombs going off by governments in particular, but is certainly other circumstances.
Yeah, and governments hire psychopaths to, commit acts in their name. And, there is obviously some brainwashing involved, and some people are able to tell themselves they're doing it for their country or whatever and kind of block out the idea that they're killing innocent people. But, regardless, it is a callous thing to do, the taking of another life, because it basically requires you have no empathy. Because if you don't have empathy, then you don't have any understanding of what your actions might be like on that other person, on the fact that you're going to take that person away from their family and their friends and their life and all their responsibilities and their job and, everything that they have created in their life. You're going to delete that. So if you're a killer like that, you have no empathy. And if you have no empathy, it probably means you're a psychopath. Because generally that's one of the traits of a psychopath, right, is that they have no empathy for other human beings. If you want to join us here, the toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. We go to Tom in New Hampshire. You can bring up whatever you want here. Tom, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just came across a news story that the nuclear power industry is pushing the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to scale back on inspections and reduce how much they go blabbing to the public about when things go wrong, and that the agency is dominated, the board is dominated by Trump appointees, and they think, oh, yeah, this sounds like a brilliant idea. Let's cut down on, and let's let them inspect themselves and assess their own power plants instead of spending federal money and imposing all these burdensome restrictions, restrictions which, by the way, might have prevented the disaster in Fukushima, Japan on 11 March of 2011. Let's not forget, disasters do happen, and it's a recipe for disaster to scale back on the controls of these things.
Isn't it true, though, Tom, that they've basically kind of crippled the nuclear industry in the United States by not allowing them to essentially, create new nuclear power plants in the last basically 2 or 3 decades?
Or even create safer power plants.
Well, newer presumably would also mean safer, but yeah, I mean, implement new systems.
Not necessarily, because they can still build power plants, they just can't build a safer type of power plant.
They can still build new nuclear power plants?
I'm not 100% sure on the details, but I'm assuming that
you have to get permission.
I heard that you can't do that.
It's very hard. There haven't been any built in quite a while.
Right.
Too many people talk.
Can I point something out here? That there's a federal law limiting the liability of these things if they do blow up.
Yeah.
And also, then you take a look at your insurance policy, take a look at that fine print there, you're not covered either. So, the amount of devastation, and that they're not even liable for, because the insurance companies won't cover that kind of risk. It's just too dangerous. And now they're talking about reducing the amount of oversight by the government and such. It is kind of scary, and it's
well, I'm not scared by whether or not the government is involved in something, because governments have historically, been overseeing nuclear power, and all of the accidents have happened under government oversight of nuclear power.
Oh yeah, Chernobyl. That was
right.
run by the government.
Right.
Yeah.
So aren't you supposed to be a libertarian, Tom? I mean, what are you endorsing government oversight for?
Well, I'm endorsing. Let's make these things. If you're going to shut them down, that's the best thing, because they're too dangerous. But
what's the evidence they're too dangerous? I mean, most of them operate safely.
There have been accidents, and people have been getting killed. And
when was the last time that happened in the United States?
3 Mile
Island. And when was that?
That was.
Wasn't that the 70s?
That was a long time ago. That was around 1979 or something like that.
I wouldn't exactly call that a crisis of nuclear power plants breaking down.
It's probably more of a – I think what it is it's more of a liability issue, or it should be.
It should be, but he's saying they're protected from liability.
Right. And I think that's the problem. It's government actually interfering.
So there's your government protecting these people from being held liable. It would seem like you would not want the government to be involved in these things.
Yeah, I don't want the government to be involved in them, but they are too dangerous. They are creating an inherent.
So you're saying you do want the government to be involved, then?
Well, no, I don't know if he's saying that. He's just saying they're too dangerous. That doesn't necessarily mean he's arguing.
Well, yeah, but that means he wants
them shut down.
Well, that's a presumption. Tom, what do you want?
No matter how safely you try to run these things, you never know when there's going to be an earthquake, like what happened at Fukushima.
He said earlier he wanted them shut down.
Oh, did he?
Tom, what do you want to happen then? Let's just be clear. What do you want?
Do you want the government to shut them down, or do you want them shut down some other way?
Well, I don't know how to shut one down myself. Do you?
No.
You know how to shut down
a big red button. You just go in there and push it.
No, I think you have to pull some lever on the left. You'd have to ask some of the guys that work there how to do that.
So did he not answer did he just dodge that question?
I think he dodged the question.
Thanks for he did just hang up there. Thank you for the call. I
was just going to say before that, from my understanding, like some of the biggest opponents to nuclear energy being adopted are the environmental crowd, right? And because they have a fear of like toxic waste or something. Even though, I mean, when you take like the chart of what was it like, energy being clean and efficient, nuclear is pretty. I mean, it's pretty good. I'd say it's like the best bet for it. Best of both worlds, being clean and being something that could provide a lot of energy, unlike wind or solar that could turn off if a cloud shows up. And I mean, like, which is why I think it's odd that that like instead of rolling back saying, okay, let's have more power plants, but let's make sure they're inspected and safe, we're saying less inspections. That just seems like a recipe for disaster. You know
what I always thought? It's not so much that power plants are super dangerous. I mean, I think they potentially are, or the damage that can be caused when they do go wrong. I think it's fair to say that they do occasionally go wrong. But a lot of it also is placement. I mean, if it's placed right next to major...
But they need to be near rivers because to cool, they need an access to water to cool it off, which causes heat pollution in rivers.
Part of the problem with why we haven't had a whole lot of nuclear development, because the government stands in the way of it. There are other types of reactors. You could do a thorium reactor, which is much, much safer. It basically can't melt down, from what I understand. So there are advances that could be implemented.
Yep.
It's Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live, and you can take control of the airwaves here. You can bring up whatever you want. Our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. If you want to accept cryptocurrency like Bitcoin at your point of sale in real life, at your brick-and-mortar business, then turn to the folks over at anypay.global. In fact, they set up a brand-new website, helpmetakebitcoin.com. So if there's somebody that you know that might be interested in taking Bitcoin, this website makes it easy. It'll walk you right through the process. And when I say process, there's really not much of a process. You create a username and password, and then you load up your cryptocurrency addresses for your wallet in the back end, and then load the app on your point-of-sale device. That's it. Go to helpmetakebitcoin.com to get started, and then within moments you'll be accepting Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, Dash, Zcash, and others if you want to. It's helpmetakebitcoin.com. As we continue here, Ian, Vincent, and Chris in the studio tonight, just watching some disturbing footage from the killing of what is apparently at least 49 individuals in Christchurch, Canterbury, New Zealand. I did just post the DTube footage, so somebody uploaded, they got their hands on this because he apparently streamed it live to Facebook as it was happening. Somebody presumably ripped it from Facebook quickly afterwards, because I suspect Facebook by now has long since taken it down. The footage has been placed on DTube, which is, as I understand it, a decentralized video storage and service. So in theory, this video should not be able to be taken down at this point.
Interesting.
So it is there. I posted it in our On Air Now room on our Discord server over at discord.lrn.fm. In the beginning of the video, and we have not watched the whole thing, and nor do I really want to watch the whole thing, because it's ultimately, as you were saying, I think it was off the air, one of you guys were saying, this guy wants the attention. He wants people to talk about him.
Oh, he said as much in the manifesto.
In his 74-page manifesto.
Is that really it? He wants people to talk about him, or is it that he wants people to talk about his beliefs, his views on an issue that he's concerned about?
Well, I mean, if you want to read an excerpt from his manifesto, Vincent, you've read more of it than I have at this point. You're welcome to share if you have any kind of answer.
Yeah. Let me just find it. There's a lot
to that question. But basically, I'll recap what we've seen in this video so far. Basically, the first 5 minutes is of him driving, and he gets out, grabs a couple of weapons, and walks right into the mosque, passes by people outside, doesn't shoot the people outdoors, and then immediately begins to fire at people in the doorway of the mosque and proceeds to go room to room, just basically blasting anybody that he comes into contact with. There does appear to be at least one man who early on makes a jump at him, tries to stop him, but he is cut down. I mean, it's horrifying. Did you find something?
Yeah, so he gives many reasons. It's on page 6, I believe, of the PDF. But basically here, I'll just read this paragraph. Finally, as in reasons why he did it, to create conflict between the two ideologies within the United States on the ownership of firearms in order to further the social, cultural, political, and racial divide within the United States. This conflict over the Second Amendment and the attempted removal of firearms rights will ultimately result in a civil war that will eventually balkanize the U.S. along political, cultural, and most importantly, racial lines. This balkanization...
So hold on. So just to clarify, he believes that by doing this attack, he will encourage more gun control laws in the United States specifically, because they're already pretty strict over there in New Zealand, as I understand it. So he will encourage more gun control laws, which he then believes will encourage the pro-gun people to kind of dig into the trenches, so to speak, and spark some sort of actual conflict.
Well, I
Civil
think,
war?
I mean, I can't speak for the guy. I'd say it's more likely that the anti-gun people will spark it, because most pro-gun people just want to be left alone, be the anti-gun people who want it to be taken. He continues, this balkanization of the U.S. will not only result in the racial separation of a people within the United States, ensuring the future of the white race on North American continent.
Makes no sense. I mean, I don't see why, even if you believe there's going to be a civil war based on gun control, which doesn't seem likely, but even if you did believe that that was going to happen, it doesn't follow that a war that divides people between their opinions on gun control, which would obviously be a slaughter, because the people that have the guns versus people that don't have guns, it's going to be a pretty quick fight.
But the people who don't have guns, just go on a side tangent here, but people who don't have guns do have something. They have the full force of the government, absolutely.
Sure, there is that. But still, if you have two anti-gun, pro-gun sides fighting one another in this mythical civil war, it doesn't follow that racism is going to be a factor there, because there are blacks that have guns. there are Asians that have guns, so that's not going to be a factor. I'm not sure where that comes from.
I am kind of curious now. This is maybe kind of messed up, but what is the makeup of gun ownership in the United States?
That's a good question.
Along racial lines.
Well, and this is just me. This is just me guessing from, or I think it's like inductive reasoning or whichever is me reasoning. So in cities. Right? Yeah, at least let's say legal gun ownership, because we have no idea how many illegal guns there are. So in cities, there's tight gun control, and many cities just don't, like Baltimore, Washington, D.C., New York.
Chicago.
Chicago. It's almost, they're all gigantic gun-free zones.
Even though Chicago's, and Baltimore, the murder capitals of the U.S., right?
Yep. Seeing the pattern here. And so, you go to like places like Texas, where there's people like Alex Jones who have like dozens of firearms, and so, and there's more.
There's a black guy that runs a very popular gun store in Austin, Texas.
I know, but in general, those are the exception, not the norm. And so the majority of the, quote, like the colored or minority population, the non-white population in the U.S. are focused in cities, right, at the moment. While like many, there's white flight, right, so in rural and suburban areas. Oh, absolutely, it's true, yeah.
I don't know if that's true, because there's a lot of blacks in the South, all across the South, so I don't know if I agree with that.
So, okay, at least in the North, I know. But it's, it's
true that cities tend to be more urban as far as their,
I'd say cities are more diverse because that's where people are coming in from compared to like rural areas. And maybe in the South it's different, like in Louisiana and the Bayou.
But there's plenty of gun-owning, blacks in the South.
Yes. Okay, so that's, and I'm just saying in regards in general, right? So this is just me guessing. And that I'd say it's
speculating.
Yeah, if you've got some statistics and you want to jump in, you're welcome to join us here at 855-450 free. But I just don't buy his claim that a gun-based civil war is going to result in a race division.
Oh, I mean, obviously this person's mental faculty. I mean, the sheer amount of
this is pure fantasy.
The fact that they're browsing 4chan as an adult already brings into question their mental faculty.
That's true. He's 28.
And the final, the final paragraph here is he says for reason doing it. Furthermore, this balkanization will also reduce the USA's ability to project power globally and thereby ensure that never again can such a situation as the U.S. involvement in Kosovo ever occur again. And then he puts in brackets, where U.S. NATO forces...
So he believes that sparking a civil war... First of all, he thinks he's going to help spark a civil war. But he believes that sparking a so-called civil war is going to result in the U.S. government not invading countries around the world.
Well... I mean, there might
taking
be,
sides.
He doesn't elaborate any further.
There might be some rational logic behind that.
Really?
If you're talking about the United States breaking up into lots of different governments, basically.
He didn't say that.
Well,
isn't that what civil war
he doesn't. Yeah, no, I agree with you, Chris.
No,
he doesn't specify what balkanization, what he means by that. Does it mean that, does it mean like the U.S. is taken over by whites? Does it mean they separate into different ethno-states? He doesn't really elaborate.
Well, I mean, simply a country that is divided is going to have, presumably, it's not going to have as much influence around the world. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but...
but remember, the Civil War idea isn't that there would be governments fighting one another. If you listen to what these people are saying about the Civil War, and maybe, maybe it happens more often on like a Saturday night on Free Talk Live, so you may not have heard some of these discussions, but we've had people calling in over the last year or so who really, really believe that there's going to be a civil war. And every time they call in, I always ask, well, what are the sides? Go ahead and name for me what the sides are going to be. And they never are really good at saying what the sides would be, but they don't believe they're going to be government versus government. They believe they're going to be like, this guy's saying, gun owners versus people that want gun control, or, races squaring off and fighting one another, that they're going to be this sort of... dispersed, distinct, difficult to really ascertain.
Are either of you familiar with Bleeding Kansas?
It sounds like a band. What is that?
So before the American Civil War, the first one, the only one so far, there was there's debate whether or not there's going to be a vote in Kansas whether or not to be a slave state or a free state. So you had pro-slavery and anti-slavery militias from all around the country. They would go to Kansas and would kill each other to try and get remove votes from the other side. So it was like, the American Civil War started out with just partisan fighting, and then it turned into two separate governments fighting. So I think it's possible that this, if there is, an American Civil War, it starts out with just militia groups or whatever fighting, or gangs fighting, and then it evolves into something much bigger.
We continue. Your calls and thoughts are welcome. Hour number 2 on the way. 49 people apparently are dead in New Zealand after a lunatic, at least one, went on a rampage with Some serious weaponry. There's more coming up here. 855-450-FREE, and he says he wants to spark a civil war. 855-450-3733. It's Free Talk Live.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. You can bring up whatever you want here. We're launching into the second hour of the program. You dial toll-free here at 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. We watch it so you don't have to. It is a horrifying video that has come out of New Zealand. The gunmen, at least one of them, there, maybe others who are being investigated, but this guy definitely did all the damage, it seems like himself, at least judging by this video, at this first mosque that he attacks. With you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
It's Vincent.
And Chris.
You're welcome to join us. You can bring up anything that you want. This is pretty big news, though, right now, globally, where at least 49 people are dead. Apparently killing at least 41 of them at a mosque, and then allegedly went on to a second mosque. Further, he was, it's brutal to watch it. He goes into the first mosque. About 5 minutes of the video are him driving initially. Goes into the first mosque and just immediately starts shooting at people that are in the doorway, starts shooting at people throughout the mosque, going room to room. And then he comes back around and starts just unloading a couple of magazines worth of ammunition into the pile of bodies, and then gets even closer to those bodies and literally puts bullets directly into those people already, many of them shot to death, whoever it is that he suspected might have still been alive. I think he just went person to person in there, including at least what I could tell one small child, or at least, I say small, I mean a child, clearly a child there. Pretty horrifying stuff. A 74-page manifesto released with just a load of meme references apparently throughout it. Vincent, you've been helping us pick through that and share some of the awfulness from it. He believes that he's going to spark some sort of a race war or gun-related conflict. He wants gun control to come down in the United States to divide people from the side of pro-gun versus anti-gun, and he believes that he's going to be the catalyst for that, based on the excerpt that you've shared with us so far. I did, by the way, do a quick search because we were sort of wondering aloud, because I made the statement that the belief that if you were to actually have this fantasy civil war that this guy wants, and he's not the only one, because there's a lot of people who've talked about civil war is coming. They've talked about it on this show as callers. But even if you believe that you're going to divide people on the issue of guns, that's not going to. It doesn't follow that that's going to result in a race war. And I realize that Christopher Cantwell, who is a racist, is in our chat room right now on Discord claiming that whites are all about guns. But the statistics show that, well, actually blacks have a lot of guns too. According to Pew, which they do research, PewSocialTrends.org, this story published in 2017 looking at ownership of guns in the United States, in America. Apparently 30% currently own a gun. About 69% do not currently own a gun, generally. Okay, so gun ownership is the minority in the United States generally. According to the story here, handguns are the most common of those who do own guns. So 72% say they own a handgun, 62% say they own a rifle, 54% say they own a shotgun. Of those who say they, and that's for those who own more than one gun, of those owners who say they have only one gun, 62% say it's a handgun. So by far, handgun's the most popular style of gun. Out of those, so we break down the demographics of people who, so they look at who personally owns a gun and those who don't own a gun but somebody else in their household does. So clearly men are the bulk of this. You've got 39% of American males saying they own a gun. 5% say somebody else in their household does. Again, those are males. Women, 22% own a gun. And then about 18% of women say somebody else, presumably the male, in their household owns a gun. So 39% of males own a gun, 22% of females own guns. Among age breakdowns, it's not a huge discrepancy between ages. People ages 50 and up, 33% of them own a gun, so 1 out of 3 in the United States. People between the ages of 30 and 49, about 28 of them, 28%, own a gun. And then ages 18 to 29, about 27% of them. You look at breakdowns by race, 36% of whites say they personally own a gun, so about 1 out of 3, and 24% of blacks, so 1 out of 4 blacks own guns. 15% of Hispanics apparently own guns. So of the different race breakdowns there, Hispanics actually the least likely to own guns. But 1 out of 4 blacks is a strong number of people who own guns and who care about the right to bear arms. So to just dismiss them out of hand is,
well, that's 1/4 of 13% of a population at the moment, maybe 14. I guess I don't know if it increases.
Yeah, that's right.
I wonder how the statistics are being obtained. Is this legal gun ownership or is this all gun ownership?
Well, if a person's admitting to owning a gun, I'm sure it's legal.
So it's a study then. So
it's a Pew research.
And plenty of people also just blanket say no or refuse, right? Like if someone called up and asked if I owned any guns,
you wouldn't admit it.
Yeah, absolutely not.
I wouldn't even talk to them. I wouldn't say no. I wouldn't say yes. It's none of their business.
Just hang up.
Yeah.
Do you say something when you hang up on people, or do you just hang up?
You mean like a spam call or something like that?
Yeah, or telemarketer.
Most of the time they're not even people. Most of the time it's just a robot.
Or if it is a person.
You have to wonder if it's not a higher percentage based on the fact that a lot of people wouldn't report it. And obviously if you don't have a gun, you probably would say
right. So I would say these are bare minimums in this case. So that's a good point. As far as hanging up on people, with individuals, if it's an actual human being, I'll usually say something like, please take me off your list, and then I'll hang up the phone. Yeah,
it's like calling people up and asking, are you a drug dealer?
Yeah.
Do you take
how many people are going to say yes?
Are you an alcoholic?
Yeah, that's another good example, right?
Republicans much more likely to personally own a gun, with 41% of them saying they personally own a gun. 16% of Democrats say that, and 36% of self-described independents say they own a gun.
Wait, what percentage of independents?
36%.
Oh, that's pretty high.
So it's about your typical 1 out of 3.
It's just a little bit lower than Republicans.
Well, again, all adults, 30% say they own guns. So that's about on par.
Yeah, okay.
So if you want to comment, you're welcome to join us here. Again, the video, absolutely horrifying, the murder of dozens of people in New Zealand. The guy actually leaves the mosque after putting bullets into people while they're laying down, dead and or dying people. He then leaves the mosque, then shoots at people out in the streets, and then goes back to his car, retrieves another gun. Now, this is after a couple of minutes of shooting. So he then retrieves another gun from the back of his car, then goes back to the mosque parking lot and proceeds to shoot at people who are apparently at a distance in the parking lot.
When moments matter, cops are minutes away.
Yeah, then goes back into the mosque and continues to shoot at people. So he actually goes back out to the car, gets more ammo and another gun, and then goes back in and continues to blast away at these people he's already felled earlier in the video. He then finally gets back out, shoots at another person who was near his car, runs that person over with his car, and then while he's driving, just seems to be stopping in the streets. At one point, he blasts out his own windshield as he's shooting at people from the inside of his vehicle. So it's not clear if he's just shooting at random people on the streets, or if he's in, I don't know if he's in a Muslim neighborhood and is just seeing people, in Muslim headwear and is targeting them. It's not clear. The video is very low resolution. Thank goodness. It's horrifying to see, violence like this in general, let alone in, HD quality. So at this point, we have not finished the full 17-minute video. We're at about 14 minutes into it, just kind of giving you the recap of what happened here. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE, and he did stream this apparently on his Facebook account, so somebody ripped this video down before, obviously, Facebook took it down. Let's go to actually, we'll get to the calls here in just a moment. Our toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Again, 49 people at least shot to death. This person has been taken alive, the alleged shooter here in this case. I mean, it's definitely him, right? Like he recorded video of it. And we'll get his name for you again. Brenton Tarrant is his name. He's got a 74-page manifesto. You're welcome to comment. 855-450-FREE like freedom. This is Free Talk Live. It's Free Talk Live. Toll-free number 855-450-FREE like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. We do have the Discord on-air call-in line rooms over at discord.lrn.fm. Just hop into any one of those and you can get on the air with us. If you want to talk about the horrifying mass shooting happened down in New Zealand by a meme-obsessed internet guy, basically, it seems like he... seems to be, I think they actually said he posted it on 8chan.
8chan, yeah.
So they were saying earlier tonight it was 4chan. They were saying on Call to Freedom this afternoon.
They get the two, or not them, but in general, 8chan and 4chan get mixed up quite often.
Isn't 8chan a more like...
8chan is more decentralized.
4chan times 2.
Yeah, it's like a worse version of 4chan, if that's even possible.
In a way. So 8 stands for infinity. It's called Infinity Chan because anyone can make their own board, compared to 4chan, which is owned by, I forget the name of a guy. It used to be owned by Christopher Poole, where he was in total control of his site. Compared to 8chan, like you can make a Free Talk Live board.
A subboard.
Is 8chan on Tor, or is it
it's just a hosted
You could
site?
access 8chan via Tor, but you could access it on the regular internet. And yeah, it's known for being much more edgier compared to 4chan. Many people say 4chan is dead and 8chan is the successor. Both places are nasty places that no decent people would have any business being on.
Bitcoin.com is a place where decent people are welcome. Go to Bitcoin.com. They can help you choose a Bitcoin wallet. You can buy Bitcoin and find out where you can spend your Bitcoin, plus get the latest news headlines or engage with the community on the Bitcoin forum. Plus, there's also, for those of you who are brand new, they got the Bitcoin.com Academy as well. Go to Bitcoin.com and get started there. If you're not into Bitcoin yet, you've heard about it, this is a great place to go to learn the basics and get into it. Bitcoin.com. As we continue here, we'll go to Reviler on the line in Florida. Reviler, you're on Free Talk Live.
My favorite Goyles are on. Hey there. So I want to talk about my hero, Terrence, and I'm not trolling. Hail Terrence.
You're talking about this person who just shot to death dozens of innocent people?
Yes, sir. I feel bad.
Why would you call him your hero?
Because, you know what, dude? They brutalize people that look like us. And
They?
That are of our lineage.
Hold on.
Wow.
Yes.
Who's they?
The Muslims.
The Muslims in this particular mosque have brutalized people?
Oh, I don't know about them, but it's a big...
Oh, so are
scorecard.
you saying that people should be blamed as a group for what other people who are in a group do?
At a certain point, they
Does
may
that
as
make
well,
you a
because have
collectivist?
Oh, yes, of course.
Okay.
The
Now,
collectivist, the monarchist...
You're a white guy, right?
Barely Sicilian, but technically, yeah.
Oh, Caucasian. Caucasian. Okay. So, should we hold you responsible for what your ancestors did?
You should hold, well, it depends. Am I repeating that behavior? Am I not repudiating that behavior? Like, if you want to hold me responsible for what certain Berbers and Moors and so forth, I mean, I guess you could to an extent, but it's not very relevant today, you know? This is relevant. Like Rochdale, the child sex rings of Muslim scum that were raping children and the elitist.
Wow, so you just basically dodged that question. So you said it's okay if you repudiate. You're saying it's okay if you repudiate what your ancestors did, then nobody should be able to shoot you to death?
Well, I mean, it depends how relevant it is, Ian. I mean,
let's not talk about ancestors then. Let's talk about people today.
Yeah, what about all the white shooters?
Okay.
Should you be able to be held responsible for what other white people do? Because, you're all white people.
Yeah, no, but look, to be fair enough, I mean, I have my team, and overall it's Team White Identitarian. I don't agree with them on everything. I disagree with the Nazis on a lot of stuff. I'm very libertine-like, Ian. You know that. You can show Vincent the pictures later. I'm very...
Did you not just condone the shooting of Muslims because they were Muslim?
Yeah, because, dude, every single day, look at Rothschild.
Yeah, he says he's accepting this. He's saying he's on the side of his team, which he says is Team White Person. And so, therefore...
Identitarian, yeah.
Huh?
I'm sorry, Ian. I mean,
what was the word? Identitarian?
Yes, sir.
What is that?
That's what Lauren Southern is.
It's acknowledging, it's taking race realism much further, and it's acknowledging that people of our lineage have a certain lineage, just as people from sub-Saharan Africa have a certain lineage, and so forth, right? Now, the lines blur a little bit depending on where you go, but the point being, dude, look, do I feel bad on some humanistic level for at least some of these people? I'm sure some of them were decent people.
You don't feel bad if you called in to cheer on the killer. So don't pretend like you have feelings for these people.
Overall, I don't. I'm a bit of a sociopathic.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
But I'm honest about it, man.
I wish I could tell you in explicit terms how I feel about this, but you're effed up, dude. That's messed up.
Come on, Ian. You know I like you, and Vincent, I like you too. Even if you guys
don't drag me.
I'm not even going to thank you for the call.
Don't drag me into this.
I can understand somebody calling in who can sympathize with with somebody who does something just absolutely insane like this at some level.
Well,
I don't necessarily...
You use the term sympathize, so you mean you can understand why someone can feel sorry for a person who's a nutcase.
Right, because their own... they may be able to, for example, relate to them in a way...
many of us. Now that would be empathy, right?
Yeah.
If you can relate to the person, then you can empathize.
And sometimes
with that person.
it's actually the hardest thing to do is to relate to the person who is doing the thing that is so terrible, right? Mm-hmm. But to condone it, to support it, is just boggles my mind.
And to support it on the most insane. I mean, it's bad to support it, period. But to support it on this blind faith idea that people who have a similar faith should be punished for what the most radical within that faith do.
Right.
I mean, that is crazy. 99.9% of Muslims are peaceful people, just like Christians are.
I don't even think it has anything to do with faith. It's simply punishing a group of people because they happen to be part of another group.
Right. In this case, it happens to be
that
faith.
Group.
Right. It happens to be.
Right. Whether or not it's their choice is, even... It's not even a, well, I mean, maybe it is. I don't even know. I mean, Muslim. I mean, does that have some connotation with? Are they saying brown people, like brown Muslims? Or?
I don't think he would have withheld if it had been a white Muslim that he had encountered. I think he would have shot everybody that was in that building.
So in I want to make another point, but in the manifesto, I believe a person
74-page manifesto.
In the manifesto, a person wrote that they have the most contempt for converts, white Islam converts.
Wow.
White. And I just want to say that,
because he would see them as abandoning or traitors or whatever.
I didn't read
race traitors.
I was skimming over it, so I'm sure that's what
that's
the
likely
thing.
What he's saying.
I would say I'm not surprised because I mean on different websites I've been seeing, there's been some of these far Nazis or whatever you want to call it. Some people saying that they're cheering on the shooter, and I want to say I'm not surprised that people think along the lines of Rev, I guess what's collectivized punishment when you and this is a problem for everyone when you have there's it's acceptable in the United States to say that whites should pay reparations for slavery, blaming their ancestors for...
Nobody actually believes that,
No, yeah, plenty
right?
of people do. Absolutely, Kamala Harris.
What percentage of people actually support
plenty of people
reparations?
do. There's a presidential candidate running. Kamala, they talk about slavery reparations. It's an acceptable idea compared to... Which also, after...
But that's the same thing as what Rev's talking about.
I know, and I'm saying that's why, we have to stop all of it, right?
And Rev would be against reparations.
Absolutely. So I'm just saying it's on, it's on both sides. It's a dialect, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's a Hegelian dialect. And so both sides just got to stop this.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that, Vincent. The toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE. And will they even admit the hypocrisy of saying, oh, well, they're against reparations. They don't want to be considered a group like that, but it's okay to consider those other people a group halfway across the world and then attack them because of what some people did, claiming they're of the same group somewhere else that aren't related to them in any way, shape, or form. It's crazy. There's more coming up here. If you can join us, Free Talk Live. Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org. Free Talk Live, dial toll free, bring up anything you want. Our number is 855-450, free like freedom. That's 855-450-3733. Don't forget, you can join us online over at freetalklive.com, and all the features on our site are completely free, and it's also free to attend Forkfest coming up in June 13th through the 18th. And what I mean by that is there's no ticket price. So it's not free because you have to get a campground. It's at a campground, so you have to rent a campsite. But there's no actual ticket price, so there's no additional cost, unlike some camping festivals where they may charge upwards of, I don't know, $80 or something like that.
Who would do that? So
if you are looking for an affordable, liberty-oriented camping festival where there's no one in charge, you need to go to forkfest.party and learn more about Forkfest. It's coming up into its third year, and it's the 5 days right before the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which is a organized camping festival. It's not a bad one, but got to pay a little bit more to get into that one. June 13th through the 18th, that's Forkfest 2019. It's happening at Rogers Campground. Now, Rogers is kind of like mostly shut down during the wintertime, so if you're calling to reserve a site, there's probably not going to be anybody answering the phone, but I believe you will get a call back from somebody within a week or two or something like that. I'm not sure how long it takes them during the winter, but as we get closer to the springtime, they'll start to have more hours, and you'll be able to get your campsite easily reserved over at Rogers. But right now, get over to forkfest.party. You can connect with our Telegram chat and the Forkfest forum, both of which are unofficial. So, there could be more than one chat room. I mean, it's certainly possible if somebody
wanted. There's two calendars, aren't there?
There were two calendars last year. I don't know what the status of them is this year because, again, I'm not in charge. And
right.
Nobody's in charge. I'm just the guy promoting it on the radio. So go to forkfest.party and you can learn more about it, and then we'll look forward to seeing you because Free Talk Live will be broadcasting from the event. I think, Chris, you're intending to go, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You went last year.
Yeah, it's the best event of the year.
June 13th through the 18th. Vincent has not yet gone to Forkfest, but I believe you're planning a potential food booth.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Ooh, it's going to be awesome.
With Matt, who is our sometime Twitch co-host. He doesn't host Free Talk Live, but he's hosted Freer Talk Live with us a couple of times. He's my roommate here, and he's a professional cook, or at least formerly was. So they had a lot of years in restaurants. So it'll be great if we actually have one booth out there with food the whole time. That will be amazing because last year we all had to drive down to the restaurant that was nearby. That happens to take cryptocurrency.
Yeah, it's good food though.
Yeah, it was good. A little pricey, but it was good.
Oh, but that won't be a problem at this time.
Right.
And it won't be pricey, and we'll be accepting crypto as
That's
well.
What I like to hear.
Oh, nice.
Forkfest.party. As we continue with your calls and thoughts, you can bring up what you want. We've focused mostly tonight on this horrifying shooting of 49 people at least killed in New Zealand. You don't have to talk about that, though. What's on your mind tonight, Matthew?
Well, it just seemed like require a little bit of humor. And one of your hosts had mentioned when somebody calls and is asked if you're an alcoholic, you should say no. Well, that doesn't do any good because this thing about accusing people of being alcoholics is a heads I win, tails you lose. You say no. Well, denial is one of the symptoms of an alcoholic. So you need to sign up for our treatment program. You say yes. Well, congratulations. You need to sign up for. When somebody asks you a question like that, you say, "Why do you want to know?"
Mm-hmm.
Or what's it to you?
That is pretty good.
What's it worth to you?
Yeah.
I'll answer your questions for $50 an hour.
Ooh, I like that one. I'm going to have to try that. At any rate, y'all have a great night.
All right, Matthew. Yeah, thanks, man.
Ciao.
I appreciate it. Toll-free number tonight, 855-450-FREE. And we will go to other topics. We do have other things to discuss here tonight, but there is a relevant question on a thread about the shooting in kiwifarms.net. This is the site where somebody hosted, apparently, the video, which is, again, about 17 minutes long. It's very graphic. Even though it's low resolution, it's hard to watch it. I don't recommend it. We did watch it here for your benefit. We were able to recount and recap the horrors of it, including the murder of at least one child.
I don't know if you can really recap the horrors of it. You can. I mean, we can talk about it.
We did the best job that we could.
Well,
we
but the whole
explained what
objective is
happened.
to avoid, making it horror for other people, right? I mean, so you don't have to.
Yeah, I said we watched it, so you don't have to.
Yeah.
Right? So we recapped obviously, we can't tell you how horrible it is to watch people being shot.
Right.
You'd have to watch it in that case, and I don't recommend that you do, because it's not going to make your day any better if you were to watch this video. That said, I did post it in the On Air Now chat room on our Discord server probably most of an hour ago over at discord.lrn.fm. So if you do want to see it, there is a link to the DTube version of it, which should mean that it can't be taken down, because that is something that the governments do in these circumstances. Is in the corporations, they like Twitter.
Didn't they
Facebook,
already try?
Oh, I'm sure Facebook took this down as soon as the news got out. It was likely reported very quickly.
New Zealand wasn't that in the report somewhere that they said the New Zealand police, I guess, tried to get it.
New Zealand police told this person on kiwifarms.net to take down his copy of the video, the torrent.
Right. So they already tried.
Yes, and this person refused to take down their torrent, basically. And it's once the cat's out of the bag, in the case of file sharing, it's you can't put it back. So if you want to comment, you're welcome to join us here. One of the questions, though, that I thought was particularly relevant is how long before someone claims this S is fake, is what somebody on this thread points out. And, of course, I went over to Infowars.com just to see if they were bothering to claim that at this point, and apparently they're not claiming that. Maybe they can't deny that the footage itself is fake, because, I don't know if you've heard this, but there are people who believe that the mass shooting down in Connecticut at the school, you remember the elementary school shooting from a few years ago? Adam Lanza was the shooter. Sandy Hook, that there are people who believe that never happened.
Well, I'll say the mainstream of it and what they're accusing Jones of, and just to be fair,
Alex Jones is one of the people who doesn't believe that happened.
Well, no, hold on now. That's the smear, right? And no one ever, this just shows how ignorant people are. No one ever claims to actually see what the guy said. And did he say make some mistakes talking about it? Yeah, but the main thing is, and I'm sure there are some people who think that it's just like a like totally didn't happen. But what Jones was saying was that the guy who they caught doing it wasn't him. That there were some shenanigans going on, just because the what was it like? There's a lot of the state wouldn't let independent investigators investigate.
Didn't Jones claim that they were crisis actors? The
parents? I can't speak to that.
That's what I've read.
Well, hold on. That's what you've read. But these a lot of these papers have no issue defaming people. So
didn't Jones get sued? Isn't he being sued over this right now?
You could be sued for anything.
Yeah, that's true.
You could be sued for anything.
Hasn't he walked back and apologized for what he's said because of these lawsuits? Basically, didn't I read an article that on the Joe Rogan show that recently, that after they kind of kissed and made up, that Joe essentially held Alex's hand through an apology?
So I didn't see that part. I mean, I think he did walk back some of the things that he said, which, I mean, it was what, 2012, right? It's been so long ago.
And I didn't name Jones.
Exactly
you brought up Jones.
Oh, I know, because he's like the number one. He's the figurehead.
I said some people believe
but everyone,
that shooting was fake.
He's the one. Whenever you talk about Sandy Hook, the first thing that pops up in their mind is Jones because of a smear campaign against him.
It seems to me that it doesn't really, regardless of what side you're on that issue, it's like, how does anybody...
Wait, whether the shooting is fake or not?
Yeah, how does anybody really know? I mean, unless you were there, assuming it happened, you're probably not going to be able to know.
There.
But Chris, that goes both ways also. For the
That's
people
exactly the point that I'm making.
Yeah, at least you're fair about that. For people saying, okay, the police said this, so that's
wait a minute. What about the people who weren't killed and who are saying, yes, our school was shot up by a psychopath today? So to
as
believe
far
that
as I know,
people,
no one is debating the fact that it got shot up. Maybe
there are absolutely people who believe.
So not
again,
Jones.
We're
at
talking
least.
about Sandy Hook,
Yes.
not today. It's clear that what happened today happened. I'm sure there are people who will deny the video is real, but
we don't really know the video is real because again, we weren't there. I mean, we're taking a video that could have been fabricated. We don't have any way of authenticating it. So
I mean, I get what you're saying. But the idea
what I'm trying to say is,
are
I
you
don't
saying
know
that there was a Hollywood crew that set up this?
I'm not saying that because I don't know.
Fake...
But it seems like we're often critical of people, and yes, I tend to think that most of them are not like crazy.
Hold on, you're right that you don't know because you weren't there. I'll give you that. However, what you do know is that there are multiple reports of a thing happening in the world, and there's video footage of it happening. So by deduction, you should be able to say that this is likely not a Hollywood crew that came in and made a fake shoot up the mosque video just to terrify people in the world. I mean,
but
that's
CNN
crazy,
has faked videos
right?
before. News agencies
I think it's more likely than not that it's real, but.
Yeah, like 99.999%.
It's important to keep an
More
open
coming
mind.
up here, 855, 450. It's Free Talk Live. You dial toll-free, take control of the airwaves, bring up whatever you want. Our number's 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. We do have the Discord on-air call-in line rooms over at discord.lrn.fm. Ian, Vincent, and Chris in the studio here tonight. Don't forget to check out Chris. He's got his own show. It's called Freedom Decrypted, and you can watch and or listen to it. There's a video component. It's mostly actually a video show, but you've added a podcast version. So for those that would like to just listen, you do that.
Yeah.
Over at freedomdecrypted.com. It is every Saturday live starting at 5 o'clock Eastern Time, but of course available anytime via podcast and video playback at Freedom Decrypted. It's a tech show.
Yeah.
Freedom-friendly tech.
Yeah, it's a lot like Free Talk Live, but just tech.
And without Sarah and the rest of them calling in. So
yeah.
So in that way, it's nothing like Free Talk Live. It's probably way more focused and interesting on some nights. Now, sometimes Sarah's pretty entertaining. In fact, she'll probably be joining us later.
That's the same type of setup, though, basically. Yeah. It's back and forth. Well, at the moment, it's not. But generally, we have two co-hosts.
Oh, are you doing it alone?
Yeah, at the moment.
Oh, wow.
I need a new co-host, unfortunately. Yeah.
So if you are into tech and you're living in the Keene, New Hampshire area, then reach out to Chris over at freedomdecrypted.com. All right, our toll-free number for you, 855-450-FREE. And speaking of online internet video, coming up tonight on our Twitch channel, but for how long, we're not sure. There's going to be a knockdown, drag-out versus match where I'm sure
Is that tonight?
It's tonight at 10 o'clock Eastern Time, starting just basically a few minutes after we finish the radio show here on Free Talk Live. Now, our Twitch channel is over at twitch.lrn.fm. It's actually going to be originally broadcasted on Aria DiMezzo's personal Twitch channel, because she is expecting that this versus match, where it's going to be her, the she-male, anarchist she-male, versus the crying Nazi, a.k.a. Christopher Cantwell, that she's expecting that somebody's going to report this video and Twitch is going to take it down, which will be an interesting thing if they do, because Aria is a trans person. So
they'd be committing a hate crime. They'd be discriminating against an LGBTQ plus person.
Right. Exactly. Now, it's not a hate crime, but they would certainly be discriminating against her. And Twitch is like one of these inclusive kind of lefty tech hub sort of places. And so normally they would want to, support their trans users, basically. It would be their, kind of the way they would normally be operating. But in this case, the question is, are they going to shut down a trans person who's attacking the Nazi? Like, it's not going to be a physical fight. They're very professional. It's going to be a conversation, but it's, being marketed as a versus, she-male versus Nazi. And so will they take it down? Aria believes that if they do take it down, that they will reverse their decision and unban her channel after they finally realize that they've targeted a trans person.
Now, forget that. We got to get the ACLU, got to sue them, got to make money, and force them to pay in crypto.
I don't know. Yeah. That just seems unlikely to me.
Wait, that they'll undo the ban?
Not. Here's the problem.
What's unlikely?
I think it's unlikely that they're going to reverse it, only because it's not about the trans people or whatever minority that is being discriminated against. it's about a certain ideology, and it's I guess I don't know if I want to call it a left-leaning ideology, but there's a certain ideology, and that's what they're following. And that is basically because she's not abiding with that ideology.
Well, they're not going to know
cult
that.
Of political correctness, as it's called.
They're not going to know that at a glance. What they're going to see at a glance is an obvious trans person. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, you look good. You look good. There's no doubt. Like, she looks good. But, you know, it looks like a trans person. Not like, you know, the muscular beefcake ones, like the trans woman, and I'm going to put that in air quotes, that went into that GameStop a few months ago and made a scene. That just was that looked like a pro wrestler.
She's obviously trans because she comes out in the video in the stream that she says it, right?
Yeah.
So it's obvious from that perspective. You don't have to.
Right. It's right there.
Wonder.
It's actually going to be, I think, in the graphics on the stream. It's going to be crystal clear, like, you know, that it's going to be trans versus Nazi. That's what the whole thing's all about.
If you're following by Twitter's example, I don't think anyone actually like manually
Twitter
checks
or Twitch.
Well, I'm just using Twitter as an example, right? You bring up Candace Owens, and it's not just her. Other people would put up, like, say someone says, like, I wish all white people would die, and replace that with any other race. Obviously, you know, any sane person, well, okay, sane person working for Twitter, that's where I'm wrong already. But this is which leads me, but anyways, it leads me to think that it's like a robot or something, just because they have keywords, right? And they might, and even with YouTube, there's like some sort of algorithm that makes a transcript as soon as the video is uploaded of all the words, and if they say certain words that the system or YouTube doesn't like, it gets immediately demonetized or immediately flagged or whatever, taken down. So I wouldn't be surprised if Twitch also has some sort of algorithm that does that.
Wouldn't surprise me either.
Yeah, me either. Definitely, I definitely know Facebook does.
We're going to find out tonight.
Unless you're shooting someone, they can't detect that apparently.
Yeah, apparently not.
Or have someone kidnapped or all the other terrible things broadcasted live on Facebook Live.
So the way this is going to work is it's going to be on Aria's channel, Aria DiMezzo, and the way Twitch works is it allows you to do what they call auto hosting. So behind the scenes on the LRN.FM Twitch channel at twitch.lrn.fm, I have some settings that I've chosen that give certain priority to other channels. So when we're off the air, so when we disconnect from our server tonight, from the Twitch server, then as soon as Aria goes live on her channel, anybody who was still watching the LRN channel will then automatically be shown what's happening on Aria's channel. So it's kind of like we're streaming it, but we're not. We're just basically allowing it to be streamed on our channel. So if they pull her channel down, they presumably will not pull the LRN channel down. Does that make sense, what I've just explained?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the idea. We'll see how it goes. Tune in over at twitch.lrn.fm, or if something else goes wrong, you can always tune directly into Aria's channel, Aria DiMezzo, on Twitch, which might be hard to spell. So twitch.lrn.fm is where you can go to get that. And we're also doing another thing on Twitch that I'd like to bring to your attention. We're trying to get to a certain level of I guess like rank, if you will, on Twitch. There's Twitch affiliate, which we got real fast when we started a year ago. We've been broadcasting on Twitch for over a year. And we got to the affiliate level pretty quickly because all you really have to do is just do a lot of broadcasting in order to get to that level, and we did that. But in order to become a Twitch partner, we have to have 75 concurrent viewers over basically a period of a month. And I don't think we've ever gotten 75 viewers at once in the last year of doing the show on Twitch. So I would like to get to that. I know it's possible. Right? I mean, we're a national radio show. We have dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, a couple hundred radio affiliates throughout the week. And at the very least, right now on our Discord server, there's at least 100 people. So, like, we have enough people on our chat server alone to where if every one of them were to actually watch the content coming from the LRN Twitch, then we would hit that 75 level. Now, we'd have to sustain it for a full month. So what we're asking folks to do is load up twitch.lrn.fm. And preferably you should have an account on Twitch. It's free to do that. But load up your account, load up twitch.lrn.fm, and just leave that open on your home computer or your work computer. And then if you need to mute it, you can hit the tab mute, but don't hit the mute on the actual video window. So the idea is you'll always have the channel open on your computer. And it's kind of like how people used to have, they probably still do this, people that still have cable. But you remember when, like, maybe it wasn't your house, and thankfully it wasn't my house, but at some houses, like, some parents would always have one channel on the TV constantly running in the living room, whether or not there was anybody in there watching it.
Yeah,
You've all seen that, right?
Relatives who do that. They need like some noise on.
Oh, it drives me nuts. It drives me nuts. But it's a legitimate thing, right? Like they're not really watching the channel, but the channel is being watched.
Don't modern television shut themselves off if there's no?
No. I can't imagine that.
I just would say my relative who does that, it's like the investigation channel, so it's like all these like things like murders and stuff, so it's just like 24/7 death.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So please, if you want to help us out with reaching our goal of Twitch partner, then just go to freetalklive.com right now. It's the top blog post that I just made last night. Gives you instructions, step-by-step instructions on how to help with that. But again, if you want to help with it, you best have a actual computer at home or at work, someplace that you're regularly at. Because we don't want this to be fake, right? Like we don't want somebody to fake viewership. We don't want you can go online and you can buy viewers for next to nothing. I mean, if we wanted to, we could spend $50 and then there's some company online, probably in China or whatever, where they will generate 100 viewers for you to watch your stream all month long. So that happens. Head on over to freetalklive.com. It's the top blog post there. Coming up, we're changing topics. We're going to get into a potential ban on Tor, which sounds very scary. You've got that story, Chris.
Yes, I do.
That's on the way. Plus, we'll get an update on Venezuela. Apparently, Guaido, who is the competitor for the president down there, he got trolled by some Russians.
Big time.
And we'll get into it. Your calls and thoughts welcome. Hour number 3 is on the way. 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. You can join us here on Free Talk Live. LRN.FM now has a Discord. Discord is a free text and voice chat platform, and we now have our own server with a bunch of channels at discord.lrn.fm. You can join other listeners as they chat about various things during our live shows, or anytime, day or night. Discord software is available cross-platform, so you can have it on whatever device you want and take your chats anywhere. Join our Discord at discord.lrn.fm. That's discord.lrn.fm.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. You dial toll-free to join us here on the radio waves. Our number is 855-450-FREE like freedom. That's 855-450-3733 as we launch here into the third hour of the program. First couple hours we spent most of the show, I mean, we took a couple calls that weren't on that topic, but mostly talking about the horrifying slaughter of innocent people in New Zealand today. You're certainly still welcome to comment on that. With you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
It's Vincent.
And Chris.
And if you don't want to get on the radio with us and you'd rather be uncensored on our Twitch feed later on, we'll stick around for She-Male versus Nazi. It's coming up a little bit later on tonight. And I did talk about it at the end of the last hour. I won't recap everything, but I do want to add that if the feed gets pulled down from Twitch, it will continue not only to be recorded on video on our end, so video will exist, but also it's going to be simulcast live on LRN.FM on the audio feed. So it will not be a Twitch-only presentation. Our audio listeners will also be able to hear it on LRN, and basically nobody's going to take down the LRN feed, so I'm not worried about that happening. So if it gets taken down on video, you can still listen over at LRN.FM tonight. Again, starting at just after 10 o'clock Eastern Time. So you've got some disturbing news, Chris, coming out of the European Union for those of you who care about privacy on the Internet through the system that is probably the most noteworthy, the most infamous, the Tor system. The Onion Router is what Tor stands for.
Yeah, it's actually a little bit more than that. They're looking to ban the dark web.
So the European Union wants to ban Tor.
Yeah, and I'm gonna read the
terrible.
title, and then I'm gonna get into the story a little bit. But it gets deeper than just the title, just to keep people aware.
Well,
Okay.
just for
Where's
the
it from?
uninitiated, what Ian just said Tor and Dark Web. What, if you don't mind, just giving a brief explanation. What is Tor?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so Tor is a program that basically makes you anonymous on the internet.
That's the claim.
Yeah.
Yet they've managed to find some of these websites somehow over time, like
With
the
right.
Silk
It
Road.
can access .onion.
if you're
correct.
If you're so Tor is not as far as Tor onions are concerned, it's not 100%. Nobody's ever claimed it was.
Mm-hmm.
It's the weakest part of Tor. What it does, though, is protect. What it does well is protect the user.
So you're saying it's a much higher risk to run a website on Tor than to be a user for the...
Exactly,
okay.
and especially if you don't do a good job of it.
Of hosting a website,
yeah. So if you do a very poor job of hosting an onion site, you're at a greater risk.
Yeah,
because,
you could leak information out somehow, which has happened in some cases.
It's the same thing. I mean, potentially you could do the same thing as a user. If you go on when it was around, right? If you went on Silk Road and you gave a drug dealer your address on this onion site, and the onion site's compromised, well, the government's going to have your information, right? So it's kind of up to the user.
The early version of Silk Road, just a little bit of history.
Yeah.
The early version of Silk Road would allow that to happen, but the newer websites that are out there, because again, Silk Road was 2011, so it's almost not quite a decade since that started, but it's been a good portion of a decade. Now they basically strongly encourage or require users to PGP encrypt their addresses.
Oh, nice.
So therefore, the only person who would then receive the address would be the seller of the drugs or whatever the other product was. And if the government got their hands on the database, they would just have a bunch of encrypted data.
Sure. So certainly there's better ways to do it. The point that I'm making is it's sort of up to the user. If you're going to reveal yourself on Tor, Tor is not going to protect you. And it's kind of the same way if you're hosting an onion site. Now, there's still a greater risk if you're hosting an onion site. But it's not going to be, and mostly a lot of that risk is in compromising the server, right? It's not necessarily even in compromising you, unless maybe you're hosting the server yourself. But that also, to some degree, adds additional security too, if you are actually hosting the server yourself. Because if you're hosting on like a VPS, for example, virtual private server, as opposed to real hardware, there are more potential avenues for attack. So anyway,
but the idea, as I understand it, Vincent, is the onion is the reason they use the term onion is because there's layers to an onion, and so there's different layers that the data essentially passes through when you're connecting to one of these sites. You're not connecting directly to that site. It's being obscured through this onion network.
Yeah, basically, the entry node does not know, and the middle nodes do not know what the website is that you're going to, whether it's an onion site or not an onion site. And the exit node does if you're exiting from the Tor network, but they don't know who made the initial requests because of those onion layers, basically. So it's much more privacy friendly than, say, a VPN is.
Right.
Which a VPN will know what you're, at least if somebody's looking, they're going to know what websites you're accessing.
They could, in theory, log, and you don't know. You have to trust them when they say they don't log.
Or the FBI could come in and say, hey, we know some user on your VPN is accessing something that we don't like, and make them log. And then all of a sudden, the next time they go to access it, all of a sudden you're de-anonymized. So,
and you can combine the two technologies together. You can connect to a VPN and then use Tor, which is kind of an extra layer of protection.
It is.
Because your internet company, if you're connected through Comcast or something like that, they can know you're on Tor, but they don't know what's going on over Tor.
Right. And there's also something called bridges, which would also help you to prevent your ISP from knowing that you're connecting to Tor. But that is there also adds potential risk there too, to some degree. But anyway, it's you're going to ultimately, if you think that just running a VPN on top of Tor is enough, you're probably mistaken in thinking that's going to add much protection. You really need to separate the Tor, the computer, from the VPN server, the VPN software itself. So don't run them on the same machine, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
So don't run the VPN software on the same machine you're running Tor on, because if you do that and the machine is compromised, the VPN doesn't work.
I see what you're saying.
If you run the VPN software on a router, for example, the Tor software, even if that machine is compromised, assuming that there's no Wi-Fi card in it and something or other device that will allow them to identify the location, and there's nothing on that system like identifying your address, et cetera, you will have additional protection. So yeah, let's get into the story a little bit.
Sure.
The European, the title of the story is European. This is from where is this from? This is from the Deep Dot Web. European police Congress deliberates on making the darknet inaccessible to its states. So this is talking about the European Union. The European Union recently held discussions through the European Police Congress regarding security matters, migration, and integration. The conference began on February 19th in Berlin, with the first focus being on eliminating criminal activities facilitated online by the darknet. This is
I just want to say, like, it was about migration, integration. You have in like the UK, Rotterdam, and all these places, like all these rape gangs and grooming gangs, and the thing we're talking about is the dark web and internet stuff.
Yeah, right.
It's a sick farce.
Well, it's a lot easier to go after computer geeks than it is real criminal gangs, right?
Well, especially when you have politicians and the media covering up for them. Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, this is a huge event. It compromises around 1,500 specialists from over 20 states, police representatives, border police, Secret Service, industry managers, parliament, and other government officials. It was arranged by the main public authority newspaper in Germany in conjunction with other European officials. So this is during the 22nd Congress meeting, it was agreed that the dark web activity should be banned in member states of the European Union. This action, they say, will help prevent online-related criminal offenses, which have been rising alarmingly since the advent of the dark web.
Well, a lot of the activities on the dark web are already banned, meaning buying drugs or selling drugs is illegal in all of these nations.
Yeah.
So, but are they specifically saying that the running of a Tor exit node, for instance, or running Tor nodes,
they're saying it facilitates criminal activities?
Banned?
Yes.
Is that what they're talking about?
Yeah, that's what they're talking about. These include, and it's pretty crazy because it's also used by the police to track down people anonymously that are actually committing crimes as well. So it's used by all sorts of different groups, including victims of like rape and so on.
You mean Tor is?
Yeah, Tor is. So
there's like positive uses for Tor that never get focused on.
Right, and they're going to attack basically
buying drugs
based
is
on
positive.
all of the scary illegal uses.
There's more of the way here. We can continue with the story in moments. Your calls and thoughts welcome on banning Tor or whatever's on your mind. It's Free Talk Live. It is Free Talk Live, talking about a potential crackdown against Tor, the onion router, the internet's most renowned system for anonymity online. Apparently, the European Union may be targeting Tor, and Chris has that story. We're going to continue with it here in moments. Also on the way, the Russian trolls who apparently targeted the Venezuelan proclaimed leader Juan Guaido, and we can get into all that coming up here. Vincent has that story. Our toll-free number, if you want to join us, is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. By the way, big thanks going to Richard Freeman, who is a silver amplifier. AMP stands for Advertise, Market, and Promote. And the idea is you send $5 a month into Free Talk Live with credit card, PayPal, or Bitcoin BTC, and then we will invest that into helping Free Talk Live get on more great radio stations around the country. We've got 194 great radio stations, both AM and FM, that air this show throughout the week at various different times. And we can have 200, 300. It's possible to have more than that. It's just it takes money, it takes time, it takes effort, and the AMP program is designed to help us accomplish that sooner rather than later. So do like Richard Freeman has done, please, and join the AMP program over at ampamp.freetalklive.com. You'll get some cool perks like access to supporters-only chat rooms on our Discord server. There's still the AMP-only Facebook group for people that are still on Facebook, and other benefits and perks over at amp.freetalklive.com. amp.freetalklive.com. Story coming out of Europe. What's the source on this again?
Deep.web, I believe.
They're a good source for darknet-related news and such.
Yeah, I've actually looked through some of their pages here not that long ago, and I have to say it's disturbingly there's a disturbing amount of information about the dark web.
Yeah, well, people are very interested in things that they're not allowed to access. Yeah. And as you were pointing out just a moment ago, if it's true that the European Union does decide to go after Tor, and they haven't made the decision yet, right? This is just a bill to propose that?
This is stories leading up to a proposed bill, I guess. But it is so this has been talked about for years, all over the world, really. In the United States,
about banning it, you mean?
Yeah,
it was created by the government in the first place.
About
right?
banning encryption or
Good luck with that.
putting in backdoors. So this is kind of an extension of that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it hasn't really gone anywhere. And the police, in the United States, they're arguing for it, and and so on. So this is sort of.
You mean the police are arguing for backdoors into encryption,
right?
Yeah.
In the United States, it's been come up with
they've gone after Apple,
the shooter,
and Google,
Apple, and so we've covered stories on Free Talk Live, sort of in the same context,
right?
But never have they suggested banning Tor or the dark web. Before.
They're basically talking about, this would be unprecedented, first and foremost, to actually, because, they've made it illegal to share files online. They've made it illegal to, sell drugs, obviously, in all these countries or whatever. So certain things you can do online are illegal, but they've never made a protocol illegal. They've never made, a method to communicate illegal that I'm aware of. Has that ever happened?
They did restrict encryption technology in the 90s.
Really?
Actually. Yeah. And
in the U.S.?
In the U.S. And it's still technically restricted export of it to certain
Was this
countries,
before
like
PGP?
Iran.
Or after?
Whether or not it was. PGP's been around a long time. I don't recall exactly what time frame. It's the same time frame, but I don't necessarily know which came first.
I'm just curious, what reason would they do that?
To ban, they considered it ammunition, and they banned it under that.
Ammunition,
which is the same. Okay, so this is the same government agency that went after Cody Wilson, because Cody Wilson's the guy who came up with a 3D printed gun, right? And so he came up with plans for a 3D printed gun, and the U.S. government said, you can't distribute that because anybody who comes from other countries to download you distributing that file of how to make a gun is you are distributing a weapon, basically, and so therefore you're subject to this international I think it's like the IAEA or something like that, some sort of international arms restrictions that basically says, you can have and sell and buy and own firearms in the United States, but you can't send them to Iran, you can't send them to North Korea, you can't. So they're basically we're applying that law to digital files,
right? And it's the same argument is used against it. Basically, it's a speech issue, and you have the right.
That's right.
As a U.S. citizen in the United States to say whatever you want.
And that's basically why Cody Wilson sued and said, freedom of speech, a gun file is speech. It is words or ones and zeros in a file, and people should have it.
This is exactly what Tor was designed to protect, is speech.
Correct.
It's designed to protect activists, particularly ones overseas.
Right, so it could be
places
used
like
in
Iran, in North Korea, and China.
By dissidents.
Right, exactly, by dissidents.
Which is one of the reasons why the U.S. government supported it.
It's humorously being used by dissidents within the United States as well, I should point out.
Sure.
And so, and in Europe, obviously, the same thing happens. So, this is kind of why especially the police, they want more power. They don't like it. They want to be able to say, well, we need this tool, but we're going to make it a crime to use it. Right?
Sorry, Clamoring's got it right. It wasn't IAEA. It's ITAR. That's what the acronym is, ITAR, which stands for shoot. I'm sorry.
Well, in the meantime, I just want to say also, Chris, there's no dissidents in the U.S. They're called domestic terrorists.
That's true, right?
It stands for International Traffic in Arms Regulations. So that's what ITAR is.
Yeah, it's illegal to be anti-government, basically, in the United States.
Well, for one side, or for certain sides, right? It's illegal to be a communist and say all sorts of smash, the system and stuff, and those people are fine.
Let's go to the phones here. We can continue on the story in just a moment, but Ralph is on the line in Albuquerque. Ralph, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Hello, how are you?
Ralph, you're on the air.
I would like to talk about...
you want to talk about...
marijuana.
Okay, sure.
Marijuana. I like to have my culture very... translucent.
You like to have your culture translucent? Is that what you said? Culture?
That's right.
Can you explain what that means?
Well, my culture is a kind of, well, like
you got to spit it out, man.
Okay, they're like
Okay. I can't let you keep doing this. Thanks for the call tonight. I can't let you take a half an hour to spit out a sentence. Sorry.
It's just
I don't care how high you are.
not that interesting radio, unfortunately.
Toll-free number is 855-450 free. If you can't put a sentence together, you don't belong on the radio. I apologize. We'll take anybody. We will. We'll take any topic here on Free Talk Live. And I understand it's nerve-wracking to call in to talk radio, but we got a show to do. So let's go to David in New Mexico. David, you're on Free Talk Live, listening online.
Yeah, hi, Ralph. Let me help you out a little bit. Next time Ralph calls, he didn't tell you, but Ralph has a traumatic brain injury, and he's all there. He's 100% in his thinking process, just like you and I. But it has
well, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sure that's absolutely. I know you were calling about something, so we'll let you come back with that here in a moment. Obviously, he knows him. Probably has called other talk shows in the area. Would be my guess. So he's heard this guy before. I'm sorry that he has a traumatic brain injury, but there's some people who don't belong calling talk radio. Toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Don't mean to be mean or whatever. Not trying to be. Just, we got a show to do, and that means we need people to tune in, not tune out because they're bored or not entertained. This is Free Talk Live. More coming up. Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. It is Free Talk Live. You dial toll-free if you want, or just sit back and enjoy the show. It's up to you. 855-450, free like freedom. That's our toll-free number. We also have the Discord on-air call-in line rooms. They're available and open to you over at discord.lrn.fm. Here in the studio with you tonight, it's Ian.
It's Vincent.
And Chris.
We're going to get back into Chris's story about the potential crackdown coming in the European Union, where politicians and others are getting together to discuss a bill to potentially ban Tor, the onion router, the anonymity system, which does a lot of good things, but they're not focusing on the good things that Tor does. So, I mean, it's not a done deal yet, but we're going to get back into it. But let's go first to your calls and thoughts. Oh, yeah, and by the way, you need to know about the Free Talk Live video clips that are now available over at clips.freetalklive.com. That is where you can hit the subscribe button. It's a YouTube channel. We actually don't run the channel. It's run by Eric Freerock, who is an activist in the area. He's come out of retirement. And he's cranking out usually a video or two every single day that features some good moment of, or at least what he considers to be a good moment of Free Talk Live that makes it easy for you to share. So if you don't want to share a whole 2-hour-long podcast, you can easily share one of these shorter video clips on whatever social media you prefer. And speaking of social media, if you're following us on social media, specifically Twitter at twitter.freetalklive.com. We're on the decentralized Mastodon platform over at toot.freetalklive.com. And there's also our Telegram channel at telegram.freetalklive.com. If you're following any one of those platforms, then you will get the notices when those videos go up. So you don't even have to subscribe to the channel to know what's there and know what you can share out from it. So check that out over at clips.freetalklive.com. As we go back to David in New Mexico, listening online via TuneIn. David, go ahead with your thoughts tonight.
Yeah, I was just giving an update on these two cases I got going. They're kind of both running simultaneously. The one where I called the public radio station and they called the cops on me because they don't want me to call their station, call into their program. And I called back anyway. But then simultaneously, the New Mexico courts are trying to get me arrested for calling court administrators and asking for information on my case, things that they're mandated by law to do and that concern my case. And so I have a right to get that information.
And they've told you they don't want to talk to you, stop calling?
Yeah, exactly. And I called again actually, the last thing that this Monica Rodriguez...
Can you back off your microphone a little bit? It sounds like you're swallowing your mic, and it's really hard to understand you.
Yeah, okay, so I doubled the distance. So anyway, this Monica Rodriguez, administrator at the Children's Court in Albuquerque, I called her today. 2 weeks ago, she told me, don't call me for a week. So I waited 2 weeks, and I called her today, and she said she's not going to talk to me she's only going to communicate with me by mail.
Huh.
And I live far enough out in the boonies. I only go into town and pick up my mail about once every 3 months.
Oh, wow.
So it's not a very efficient communication, and I think I have a right to call on the telephone. But what she did is she forwarded my case. They have labeled me an obstinate something or other. That's their official designation. They call people like myself an obstinate something or other.
Yeah, you're somebody who doesn't take what they say and leave them alone. You believe you have a right to some information, and you're continuing to try to get it. And they're basically saying, yeah, we don't have any obligation to give you any information. We don't have an obligation to talk to you. Now, is that in court, that case? Is there a criminal or civil case there?
No, nothing's been filed. If I were to call her on each day and check on the status if they've gotten me an attorney yet, I'm sure she would call the sheriff's department.
Right.
But so far I haven't pushed that. But today what she said to me is that she has communicated with James Noel, Noel, who is the chief executive of the courts in Albuquerque, of the district court, and that this guy is going to be communicating with me in some form to tell me something in reference to why I can't call and get information. I looked at his bio in the New Mexico Court's Second Judicial District Court bio page for this James Noel. And it's classic. It demonstrates the problem we have in our government. This guy left private practice in 2004, and since 2004, he has been the executive director and general counsel of the Judicial Standards Commission. And he left there, and he went and he. So
basically, he couldn't hack it as a private attorney, so he went and he got a job with the government. David, thanks for the call tonight.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. The toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE. I think that, if he were to actually go through these court cases, if he were to bring some sort of case against the government saying that I deserve an answer, I have these questions, I'm a taxpayer, and I've got, that kind of position, I think that ultimately what would likely be ruled in that case is that you have a right to ask the government questions, but they have no obligation to provide you with the answers. Now, there are of course certain statutes that have Freedom of Information Act, and they are obligated to provide information
3 months after the fact
in certain circumstances, under certain parameters. But generally, you calling somebody, yeah, you have the right to pick up the phone and talk to your supposed representatives, your supposed servants in government. But as they're making it quite clear, they don't have to actually speak back. And this is what there was an organization, what the hell were they called? It was like the mid-aughts or the early aughts where there was this, I think it was called We the People. There was this organization like, one of these kind of patriot groups.
Similar to We Are Change. I'm somewhat familiar with them.
They're before We Are
type,
Change.
They might have type, right? Like the video, citizen activism, journalism.
They might have inspired We Are Change to some extent. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of video back then necessarily. Anyway, the We the People organization, they sued on behalf of this idea that they wanted to get questions answered. So they kept sending this series of questions to representatives, so-called representatives. And the questions were like, is the income tax voluntary? That was one of the questions. So they wanted to get these questions answered in like an actual responsive way. And so they'd sent them to the heads of the IRS, these various different U.S. representatives and senators, and they're just trying to get somebody to come out and answer these questions for them. And so they took the First Amendment, which actually has the right to petition for redress of grievances.
Yeah.
That's one of the few different things that are supposedly enshrined and protected by the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. And they took this all the way to the Supreme Court in D.C., and they had the Supreme Court rule that, yes, you do have a right to petition your government for redress, but the government has no obligation to actually give you an answer. So that was the Supreme Court's opinion.
Doesn't seem like the government has much of an obligation to do anything.
No, they don't.
What's the point of that part being in the Bill of Rights if we're not going to do anything about it, right?
Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
This is the same thing, like with the police not having any obligation to protect you. It's like, what's the point of the police if they're not obligated to protect you?
The point is to protect and serve the state. That's the point of the police. They're not protecting and serving you.
Right.
And the Constitution...
It's just...
There weren't any police around when the Constitution was written.
That's true. The Constitution is just cover for the violence of the state. That's all it is. It's just a flowery, nice-sounding document.
Well, hold on now. I mean, so the Constitution, yeah, I mean, in that case, you're right, because we're talking about the Bill of Rights, which is via amendments. That was the only part of that's like the freedom part of our
Bill of
government.
Rights.
But yeah, so the Constitution, it's just the way that it's the way that the government's going to work, right? I mean,
supposedly, it's an instruction book for the government.
Exactly. And so I think and it was put in there just because the government wasn't able to directly collect taxes, and that's how it made a centralized federal government, because the Continental Army threatened to mutiny because the Federalist senators told them to, and they would get what they want. And yeah, basically we have the Constitution because there was a conspiracy, a coup at the foundation of a country.
Right. So they would say
conspiracy.
Their argument would be, well, if the founders intended for the government to actually answer your questions, they would have written that in there.
Yes.
So, and again, this is all up to the interpretation of the 9 men and women that make up the Supreme Court. So they get to, as often as they want, reinterpret the words that originally were written.
And they do, and they reinterpret things in such ways that there are drastic impacts on everybody.
Sure. We got more on the way here on the potential takedown of Tor nodes, because if they're going to make Tor illegal, it would be hard to detect the users using Tor, but a little bit easier to detect where the nodes are located, perhaps. And we can continue with your calls and thoughts, and you're welcome to join us at 855-450-FREE, 855-450-3733. This is Free Talk Live. It is Free Talk Live. You can dial in toll-free. Bring up whatever you want here in these remaining moments. We have enough time for you if you dial in right now at 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Also, Discord, on-air call-in line rooms, open and available to you over at discord.lrn.fm. In the studio tonight, you've got Ian.
You got Vincent.
And Chris.
As the viewer count on our Twitch stream is increasing to an unusually high level, I suspect people are gearing up for the upcoming She-Male versus Nazi event that will be airing on Twitch. And it'll also be on LRN.FM as an audio simulcast, so stay tuned if you're on our audio streams there, or hop on over to twitch.lrn.fm and you can watch it live as long as it lasts, and we have no idea how long it's going to last as far as, will they pull the plug in the middle of the broadcast. So stay tuned to that. We've got this story about the Tor crackdown, or the potential crackdown against Tor. We'll get into that, and your calls and thoughts are also welcome. Let's go to the phones and to Sarah on the line in New Mexico. It's an all New Mexico hour here. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live.
Oh, yes. I just want to say that, to improve bicycle safety, they even took those four-way stop, what do you call that, blind intersections, where there's 4 stop signs in all corners.
I don't think that's called a blind intersection. That's just a 4-way stop.
Yeah, they took one of those the smaller intersections, and they actually put concrete medians so that the bicyclists could slip through, but the cars could only turn right. So when you get to that intersection as a car on your right-hand turn lane, there's the concrete stuff in the middle, only bicyclists could slip through. All you could do is turn right and go to the next street to go north or south or wherever you go.
Okay.
And
I'm not real clear on exactly what kind of picture you're trying to paint here of these intersections, but you're saying that you believe that they're protecting bicyclists from cars with these concrete barriers?
Yeah, there's a concrete, like a centerpiece.
Have you ever ridden a bicycle?
I've ridden a bicycle when I was a teenager.
I see,
yeah.
I see. But you walk everywhere now. You walk and ride the bus.
Right.
Well, it's nice of you to be concerned for those people on bicycles. It's very nice of you to have empathy for those folks.
But, I'm quite perplexed that they wielded enough power to turn some of these small intersections, the 4-way stops, into these bicycle havens.
Does it make you feel excited, the idea of wielding power?
Well, it's just that I'm just amazed that these improvements are happening, but it's amazing that the drivers
Didn't you call in last night to take credit for it? Didn't you call last night to say that it was actually because of your calls to talk radio is why they're putting in these so-called improvements?
Well, I believe that it really helps. A little in small increments, a couple of people listening to me, some bicyclists out there in New Mexico, when they listen to me, they'll push for these kind of stuff, because they get inspired when they hear other people talking about it.
You know what? I don't deny you're right.
I have a question for Sarah.
Please.
So, Sarah, one thing that President Trump's been promising was a big infrastructure investment in the United States. If he ran on that for his 2020 campaign, would you vote for him? Like fixing for roads and all the stuff you've been talking about?
Well, what he's talking about is demolishing the Amtrak rail lines and then building more freeways. That's what the infrastructure that...
Wait, who's talking about getting rid of Amtrak? I'm sorry, what was the name?
No, but he's all
I asked about Trump.
Trump wants to get rid of Amtrak?
This is the first I've heard of it. I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, it's a gigantic state boondoggle.
It is that.
When Trump says infrastructure, he wants to build more freeways.
Hey, sweet. Rail news. Trump budget slashes funding for Amtrak's long-distance service.
So aren't those privatized businesses in the United States and the government rents?
Amtrak is not a private business.
It's not. Okay.
That is a government-run
It's interesting.
passenger rail. I don't know if there are competing passenger rails out there. I don't think that there are. I think Amtrak's basically the only one, but I could be wrong about that. I'm in no way a train fanatic.
Oh, the rail lines are owned privately, but the train Amtrak is probably
government run.
That's probably what it is. Because my understanding is we do the reverse in the United States. The government basically subsidizes or controls the passenger trains, but the tracks are not. And in Europe, it's the exact opposite, where the state owns the tracks, but then there's private enterprise that owns the trains.
Sarah, thank you for the call tonight. Appreciate it. President Donald Trump's fiscal year 2020 budget, according to Progressive Railroading, who knew that was a thing, submitted yesterday calls for restructuring Amtrak and slashing the railroad's budget to emphasize shorter distance routes. Now, of course, that's not the right way to approach it. If Trump actually wanted to do the right thing here, what he should do is cut Amtrak loose, make it into its own private agency, not related to the government, not getting funding from the government, not getting bailouts.
It would fail then.
Good. Let it fail if that's what it's intended to do.
And, little Jared Kushner Wormtongue won't let him do that, probably, so we're not going to see anything.
Yeah, well, I don't know if he's in the pocket of his own son-in-law.
Well, no, I mean, he's the advisor, right? Jared, like everything that Jared and Ivanka are pushing gets done, while all this stuff that, they hated Steve. Like, what was it? Jared Kushner originally, apparently, Chris Christie was going to be the vice president, instead of Pence, but Kushner, because Chris Christie went after Kushner's father for some misdeeds or something
as a prosecutor.
Yeah. He put the kibosh on it. So okay, I'm sorry, Chris. Back to your article.
Yeah, let's get back to Tor, potential crackdown.
I've got one last line I think we can get in before the show's over. Tor and the dark web should be made illegal and inaccessible in Europe. Also, most of those who access the dark web are actual or potential criminals who need to be stopped before they harm anyone. Potential criminals. In other words, basically what he's saying. Thought crime. Yeah, exactly. It's amazing.
Scary.
It's amazing what these politicians think.
They're not thinking that hard, obviously, but yes.
Yeah, I mean, I just...
Stupid. And amazing and stupid. Because as you've already pointed out, Tor is useful for people who want to undermine corrupt governments. The Iranian government, for instance. That everybody hates them. Yeah. You're going to be banning the people who could help those
It's what Tor was designed for.
Right.
It's designed for activists. It's designed for rape victims. It's designed for people... who actually are victims, and yet the government wants to take this tool away. And it was also, humorously, designed for the Navy. And the Navy needs people who are not the Navy and other organizations to use it in order for it to even work for the government.
So if they're talking about they believe that everybody that uses Tor is a criminal, or a potential criminal, then that's what they're going to turn them into if they make it illegal.
Yeah.
Because then if you are in Europe and you're using Tor, you will then be breaking the law.
The humorous thing about that is it's designed to thwart governments passing laws against it. Like that's what that's what it does. It's designed to work in places like Iran and China and places that.
But now wait, can't you determine? Hold on, but can't you determine where the nodes are? When you're looking at Tor, doesn't it show you the addresses?
It will show you
nodes?
all the nodes, and so you
can see the countries
they're in. You can block the nodes, but the problem is there's something called a bridge, and so people will use bridges to countries that, and the bridges we don't know about, right? The government doesn't know about these bridges.
What is a bridge in the parlance of Tor?
Basically, it connects you to a node that is not public. Okay. So the government, the ISP, does not know you're connecting to Tor because you're doing it indirectly, sort of.
Okay.
And it's sort of like if you were to use a VPN first and then connect to Tor outside the United States. Or, I'm sorry, outside of the country which you're operating.
So are you saying that somebody could run a Tor node in Europe non-publicly and be listed on these bridges?
That's a good question. Yeah, they could potentially run a bridge. Sure. I don't see why not, because as a bridge, I mean, potentially there's a little bit of risk because if you run a bridge and the government gets your bridge, right, it gets let out to somebody and that person's the government, so to speak, they could maybe then go after you because it's illegal to run Tor, right? But yeah, it's I mean, it's certainly going to add risk to the node operators, but not necessarily to the users.
It's a concerning, regression, if you want to call it that, in technology, because they've already gone after Ross Ulbricht for being a drug kingpin for simply running a Tor website here in the United States. Now you're talking about outlawing the entire protocol itself. I mean, I don't know if that's the right term. I think it is. Basically, it's a platform on which
they're arguing. And it's not just Tor. They're talking about the dark web in general. So Tor is just
there are other alternatives,
thing, right?
There's I2P. Isn't that one of them?
There's I2P. There's Freenet. It's a very old one also.
Yeah.
So certainly there are others, and they would all be
illegal. Saying all of that would be illegal if this goes through.
Yeah. So if people are interested
in goes through in the European Union, it's going to go through somewhere else too.
Oh yeah, and if you're interested in hearing more, check out freedomdecrypted.com tomorrow, 5 o'clock
Eastern time.
Yeah,
check him out over there, and check out Vincent on his show, Questioning Authority,
tomorrow night
over at 10 p.m. Eastern time on LRN.FM and on our Twitch channel at twitch.lrn.fm. Stay tuned if you're on the audio streams. We're going to go live there and on twitch.lrn.fm with Shemale versus Nazi in just minutes.
Hi, I'm Derek J. I don't want a politician to represent me. To me, government is the idea that one group of people can coerce everyone to comply with an edict or face increasing punishments up to and including death. Despite perhaps the most noble of intentions, the best government services are a far cry from what could be provided for by voluntary interactions. Besides, the people who call themselves the government wage wars and put peaceful people in jail for crimes involving no victims. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. You can order your copy of the Director's Cut DVD now at victimlesscrimespree.com.